once again for joining us. We have with us today Riad Meddeb, who serves as the Director of Sustainable Energy Hub at the UNDP. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I also have my colleague here who will be interviewing you, Kingsley Jeremiah.
Thank you so much, Riad, for the work UNDP is doing with respect to energy access. But it will be great for us to also fully understand now how UNDP's role is ensuring that there's energy penetration, particularly in developing countries. And now we know that there's a goal by 2030 where we are tripling renewable access and doubling down on efficiency.
And our work for us is try to catalyze action and partnership in order to give access to 500 million people to clean, affordable and sustainable energy and accelerate the just energy transition. And that is for us one main objectives. The how, and that is what is important for you. 600 million people do not have access to electricity in Africa. You have around 900 million people do not have access to clean cooking in Africa. What are we currently all doing and how can we respond to those challenges? And for us, UNDP, we try to approach it through two enablers. One is the partnership that we are developing with the private sector, civil society, the youth, the entrepreneurs, but also through energy finance, through financial vehicles. Approaches for UNDP is taking into account all the ones who are left behind. If you take what we are doing in Nigeria, in DRC, we are developing a network on African mini-grids, photovoltaic, reaching the one who are completely off-grid and the one who are left behind. It is easy to invest in some areas, but in the rural areas where you do not have grids, this is where it is important to respond who are completely left behind, because you mentioned the 2030 agenda.
Absolutely.
So that is one of the elements that we are currently doing in Africa, in 21 countries currently, and we're going to increase very quickly to many other countries. But the other elements which are essential in our strategy is to identify what could be the accelerator for filling the gap in terms of access and for accelerating the energy transition. As I mentioned, first of all, is the market development part of the work. And the market development part of the work is we help countries to de-risk investment, and we have developed a framework for it where we review the regulatory and institutional framework in order to have an environment which is enabling investment, local and international. Second element is to develop a certain numbers of financial and innovative financial instruments like we've done it in Africa. Third element is to develop pipeline of bankable projects. Currently, UNDP is piloting in 7 sub-Saharan African countries a big program on developing pipeline of bankable projects. The other element, this is number one, market development. Second, which very important, is the work on digital intelligence, data work, geospatial data, the use of AI as an instrument for analysis, for planning, for investment opportunities. And the third element is all the work that we do on thought leadership, on governance framework for energy, on including and gender in all the energy and development policies. The link between social protection framework and the energy sector. But one element which is important is really the capacity building. And we have developed in UNDP a sustainable energy academy in order to train all the key actors on all the energy issues. It could be on hydrogen. When we hear hydrogen, do you think we can all go to hydrogen? What is green hydrogen? What is blue hydrogen? What is gray hydrogen? What is just energy transition? What are the JET-P countries, for example, South Africa? What is the difference between this approach and the approach in Indonesia or Vietnam or Egypt? How do we see it? So that's the work of UNDP, is putting in the center the human development approach when you refer to energy.
Now, so let's begin from the finance part, which seems to be a critical aspect of energy assets. We've seen situations where we come from time to time and we see more talk more than action. Now, in terms of really getting finance, Africa or the developing countries don't seem to be getting as much finance as they should, even when the Paris Agreement made space for mitigation and adaptation. The level of investment, the level of funding climate funding coming into the African countries, the developing countries, is quite low. Are there mechanisms that the UN is possibly, UNDP particularly, is looking at to accelerate finance into Africa to address the renewable energy challenge?
Absolutely, it's less than 2% in Africa. It's shocking, yeah?
Yeah.
It's really shocking, yeah? And less than 2%. And the decision of COP28, very ambitious. But how do we translate that on the ground? And that is the question. And this is what I just said previously. In UNDP, we work on the regulatory and institutional framework. Our strength is we are represented in 170 countries, 25,000 staff, and we work on the development framework. So you link it completely between the energy and the whole rest of the development. And part of it is to see how can we help those countries to de-risk the investment. And that's why, for me, the policy part of the work, when you work with the country on the vision, policy, strategy, and action plan, a structure very well on de-risking the investment, that is the key element. But beyond that is what are the opportunities of investment? And they are huge in the case of Sub-Saharan Africa. The resources that you have in Sub-Saharan Africa on critical minerals and link to the battery storage in the future. The resources in terms of solar are huge, but what are the different partnerships that you need in your different countries in order to attract investment? And that's what UNDP play a key role to its network. Our representation in 170 countries help us to link Sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa, to Asia, to Latin America, and we can learn lessons from there. For example, in the case of Latin America and the Caribbean, the biggest focus is on energy finance. In the case of Sub-Saharan Africa, the interesting focus is on access to energy and clean cooking. But if you see North Africa with the capacity of producing energy in linking it to the Sahel, this is the future of Africa, is linking the development of both regions at the same time.
At the same time, Africa has a lot of deposits of clean energy, solid mineral. But this mineral, more like what has happened with the fossil fuel, are being exported to be processed in another country. This could have possibly created an opportunity to address the poverty issue, because while you talk about the energy issue, poverty is also very related. Now, so are there ways that the UN can facilitate such that these minerals are also processed, so that the value chain can create jobs and solve developmental issues?
Just to jump in there, that's more of an infrastructure conversation here. You did mention when you were speaking the fact that we have the natural resources. We have lithium, even in Nigeria, and these things we need to produce batteries for, say, electric vehicles, which is now a very topical conversation. So there is also need for infrastructure. That conversation around how to, enhance what we currently, have in the continent. So what would we say that the UN is doing to also facilitate this conversation, given that you serve as that linkage between those who can support us with what we need, and then those who have the natural resources but need to develop them?
Thank you. And I like one word that you use is the value chain. And this is the role of UNDP and also the UN Energy, which is co-chaired by UNDP and Sustainable Energy for All. The importance is how do you bring a coherence and coordination and having an exponential impact in developing countries in our approach in terms of energy. You remember that there is, since the last high-level dialogue on energy 2 years ago, there was a pledge giving access to 500 million people to electricity. The role of the United Nations and all the agencies together and all the different development partners is to act together in a more coordinated way and have an impact together and focusing on the whole value chain. But taking into account one element which you did not mention is the digital part of the work in the value chain that can make a real difference in our work. That's why for UNDP, the link between UNDP, the energy and development is essential for us. And the approach on human development, the human development approach is the key element that will respond to what you said, the impact of critical minerals on nature, but on battery storage, on climate. So how do you link all those elements together and not in isolation?
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and this will be all until.
Thank you very much.
Again.
It's a real
Thank you.
pleasure.